What if the worst thing humanity ever created was the question itself? Some prompts don't just confuse AI, they make you wonder how our species survived this long, and somehow they only get more ridiculous from here. 1. One person asked, "Can I microwave ice to make it colder faster?" Think about that for a second. It's like asking if pouring gasoline on a campfire will help put it out. The logic somehow took a vacation before finishing the sentence. But they genuinely wanted an explanation, convinced the microwave had some secret reverse mode nobody talked about. That's the beautiful thing about the internet. It gives every impossible thought a chance to become a public question. Somewhere, physics quietly packed its bags and left the chat without saying goodbye. 2. Someone seriously asked, "If I eat a USB drive, will I automatically download the files?" That's not how digestion works. If it did, college students would have been swallowing textbooks for decades. Imagine doctors asking whether you preferred Windows or Mac before surgery. Even worse, the follow-up question was whether USB 3.0 would transfer data faster than USB 2.0. At that point, biology, computer science, and common sense all held an emergency meeting. The only thing getting installed was a very expensive hospital bill. 3. A user wondered whether standing closer to the moon would make nighttime brighter. Not on a mountain, just standing. Apparently, they believed a few extra feet would somehow impress a celestial body sitting nearly 240,000 miles away. That's like expecting your TV to become larger because you took one step toward it in the living room. The moon didn't respond, mostly because it has spent billions of years ignoring humans and has no plans to change that policy anytime soon. 4. Someone asked whether deleting cookies from their browser would also remove calories from recipes they had searched online. That's a level of optimism nutritionists could only dream about. If browser history burned fat, every office worker would look like an Olympic athlete by Friday afternoon. Somewhere, an actual chocolate chip cookie felt deeply insulted by being compared to a tiny tracking file. Technology solves many problems. Unfortunately, Cheesecake has refused every software update ever released. 5. One person wanted to know if screaming at their Wi-Fi router would increase internet speed because fear motivates people. Apparently, they believed electronics shared the same emotional weaknesses as unpaid interns. Imagine the router nervously blinking, thinking, "I'd better boost the bandwidth before he gets louder." The modem wasn't scared. It was just overheating from years of witnessing humanity ask questions exactly like this one. Customer support probably needed emotional support after reading that ticket. 6. Someone asked whether they could become invisible by closing both eyes. Their reasoning was simple. If they couldn't see anyone else, maybe nobody could see them either. Congratulations! You've just reinvented the survival strategy of every toddler playing hide-and-seek. It's adorable at age 3. It's considerably less convincing when typed by someone with an internet connection. Reality politely declined the proposal, continuing its long tradition of existing whether we acknowledge it or not. 7. A user genuinely asked if clouds get heavier every time someone uploads photos online because everything goes to the cloud. It's one of those questions that's so beautifully wrong you almost don't want to correct it. Somewhere, meteorologists collectively sighed while data centers continued doing all the actual work. Imagine thunderstorms caused by too many vacation selfies. Sorry about the flood, everyone. Aunt Linda uploaded another 400 beach pictures to the family album. 8. Someone wondered if drinking coffee upside down would make it decaf because the caffeine would fall out first. That's not chemistry. That's cartoon physics with extra confidence. By that logic, orange juice without pulp just requires drinking it while hanging from the ceiling. Gravity deserves an award for patiently dealing with ideas like this every single day. If caffeine really worked that way, every coffee shop would simply install monkey bars and call it a wellness program. 9. One person asked if airplane mode would stop their thoughts from being tracked. They weren't joking. They figured if the phone couldn't communicate with cell towers, maybe their brain would also become offline. That's an incredible amount of confidence to place in a setting usually used before takeoff. Imagine intelligence agencies throwing away billion-dollar surveillance systems because someone tapped a tiny airplane icon. The only signal that disappeared was the one connecting basic logic to the question being typed. 10. Someone wanted to know whether fish ever get thirsty. It sounds innocent until you realize they spent several paragraphs debating it with complete seriousness. They argued that humans breathe air but still need water, so maybe fish constantly crave more water. That's like asking whether astronauts wish there were more space around them. Somewhere beneath the ocean, millions of fish continued their day, completely unaware they had become the stars of humanity's latest philosophical crisis. 11. A user asked if they could speed up Monday by changing the date on their phone to Tuesday. In their defense, software updates do make phones smarter. Unfortunately, they don't negotiate directly with the space-time continuum. If changing your calendar controlled reality, everyone would have skipped tax season years ago. Governments wouldn't need economic plans. They'd just keep moving Fridays closer. Sadly, Monday ignored the settings menu and arrived exactly on schedule, as smug as ever. 12. Someone genuinely wondered whether wearing sunglasses at night would help them see stars better because everything else becomes darker. That's almost impressive. Their brain recognized one correct idea, took a sharp left turn, and drove straight into a ditch. By that logic, closing your curtains should improve your view of the Grand Canyon. Astronomers spend millions building giant telescopes, while this person believed the secret had been sitting in the glove compartment all along. 13. One user asked whether changing their password also changed it for hackers. That's a wonderfully optimistic view of cybersecurity. They imagined criminals receiving a polite notification saying, "Attention, the password has been updated. Please use the new one going forward." If only internet crime worked on the honor system. Banks would replace encryption with good manners. Somewhere, every cybersecurity expert simultaneously rubbed their temples, while hackers continued ignoring imaginary customer service announcements. 14. Someone asked if they could charge their electric toothbrush by brushing faster. Apparently, they believed enthusiasm generated electricity. That's fantastic news for anyone who has ever sprinted through housework expecting lower utility bills. If motion charged batteries that efficiently, marathon runners would be powering entire neighborhoods. The toothbrush remained stubbornly uncharged, quietly reminding everyone that cardio and electricity are still two completely different hobbies. 15. A person wanted to know if deleting Google Maps would make them impossible to find. It wasn't about privacy settings. They genuinely believed roads might simply lose track of them. Imagine highways waking up confused every morning. "Sorry, Dave uninstalled the app. We have no idea where his driveway is anymore." Satellites, street signs, and every physical landmark on Earth continued existing without consulting the App Store. Reality, once again, refused to participate in the experiment. 16. One user asked if they could avoid spoilers for history by skipping history class. Their logic was flawless, until they remembered the events had already happened hundreds of years ago. They complained that teachers kept revealing endings before they had a chance to experience them naturally. That's like refusing to learn who invented the light bulb because you wanted the surprise later. Somewhere, every history book quietly accepted that competing with this level of confidence was simply impossible. 17. One person asked if they could get a refund from Netflix because they'd already watched all the good movies. They treated the subscription like an all-you-can-eat buffet, except they believed management should magically cook brand-new meals every weekend. When someone explained that new content takes time, they suggested Netflix should simply ask Hollywood to hurry up. Somewhere, thousands of writers stared at blank pages, while one subscriber believed creativity could be scheduled like pizza delivery. 18. A user wanted to know whether unplugging their refrigerator overnight would save electricity while keeping the food cold, because the cold should stay inside. Technically, for a little while, sure, but their actual plan was to repeat this every single night forever. That's less of an energy-saving strategy and more of an organized campaign against dairy products. Milk doesn't care about your electric bill. It follows the ancient law of becoming yogurt the moment you get too confident. 19. Someone asked if birds get fined for parking on power lines. They noticed dozens of pigeons lined up neatly and assumed there had to be some sort of aerial traffic authority keeping everything organized. Imagine tiny police helicopters pulling over sparrows for illegal perching. "Sir, do you know why I stopped you?" The pigeons would probably ignore the ticket anyway. They've spent centuries proving they don't even respect freshly washed cars. 20. One user wondered if they could improve their phone's battery life by speaking more quietly during calls. Their theory was that louder voices required the microphone to work harder. Following that logic, whispering should save enough power for several extra hours. If true, libraries would double as public charging stations. Phone manufacturers would stop advertising bigger batteries and start including meditation lessons. The microphone, meanwhile, continued doing exactly what it was designed to do without judging anyone. 21. Someone asked whether penguins have knees or if they simply accepted walking like that. It's one of those questions that sneaks into your brain and refuses to leave. They weren't satisfied with photos or biology diagrams. They wanted to know whether penguins secretly wished they had chosen a different lifestyle. Somewhere in Antarctica, a penguin belly slid across the ice with complete confidence, blissfully unaware that humans were questioning its entire orthopedic design. 22. A person seriously asked if installing more RAM in their laptop would also improve their memory for exams, because everything is connected somehow. That's an incredible misunderstanding of both computers and humans. Students everywhere would have skipped studying and upgraded to 64 gigabytes before finals. Universities would replace libraries with electronics stores. Sadly, brains don't come with expansion slots, and forgetting where you left your keys remains a premium feature included with every human since birth. 23. One user asked if sunscreen works on the moon since sunlight comes from the same place. Forget the missing atmosphere, freezing temperatures, and tiny detail that getting there costs millions of dollars. Their first concern was SPF. Imagine NASA spending decades planning a lunar mission, only for the final checklist to read, helmet? Check. Oxygen? Check. SPF 50? Absolutely essential. Sometimes the most ordinary question becomes extraordinary simply because of where it's being asked. 24. Someone wanted to know if reading faster makes books shorter. Not feel shorter, actually become shorter. They argued that since time passes differently depending on speed, maybe the pages somehow compressed. That's a fascinating combination of confidence and complete surrender to physics. If that were true, librarians would have solved storage problems decades ago by hiring speed readers. The book remained exactly the same length. patiently waiting for humanity to catch up with reality once again. 25. A user asked if using Google Incognito mode meant Google itself couldn't see what they were searching. They treated the feature like an invisibility cloak instead of what it actually is, a polite request for your browser to forget what happened. That's like wearing sunglasses and assuming nobody else can see you. Somewhere, the browser quietly erased local history while Google continued doing exactly what Google does. The only thing truly hidden was how confidently that question was asked. 26. Someone wanted to know if they could lose weight by donating blood every week because blood has calories, right? They had somehow turned medical science into a fitness program. Imagine gyms replacing treadmills with waiting rooms at blood banks. Personal trainers would carry stethoscopes instead of dumbbells. Thankfully, biology stepped in before common sense completely clocked out. The healthiest thing about that plan was how quickly everyone else told them not to try it. 27. One person asked whether fish ever get seasick. They reasoned that people get motion sickness on boats, so maybe fish eventually get tired of all the waves too. It's oddly wholesome until you picture a salmon asking another salmon to drive for a while because it's feeling nauseous. The ocean has existed for hundreds of millions of years. Fish seem to have adjusted. Humans, on the other hand, still manage to get dizzy on escalators. 28. A user seriously wondered if they could improve Wi-Fi reception by holding their phone higher than everyone else in the room. Not near a window, not closer to the router, just higher. They apparently imagined internet signals floating around like balloons waiting to be caught. Family dinners must have looked fascinating, with one person stretching toward the ceiling while everyone else quietly pretended not to notice. The router remained unimpressed by this unexpected audition for the Statue of Liberty. 29. Someone asked if vampires would still need to pay taxes, since they're technically hundreds of years old and probably retired. It started as a joke, then turned into an incredibly detailed debate about immortal financial obligations. They questioned property taxes on castles, investment portfolios that lasted centuries, and whether Dracula qualified for senior discounts. Somehow the conversation became more organized than most real tax discussions. Even the IRS would probably read that thread and slowly close the laptop. 30. One user wanted to know whether setting every clock in the house 5 minutes ahead would make them age faster. Apparently, they believed birthdays were negotiated by kitchen appliances. That's an incredible amount of trust to place in a microwave display that's usually blinking 12 o'clock. If clocks controlled aging, grandparents would have smashed every alarm clock decades ago. Time continued moving at exactly the same pace, completely ignoring the decorative lies hanging on everyone's walls. 31. A person asked whether dinosaurs would have survived if someone had warned them about the asteroid. It's one of those questions that somehow becomes funnier the longer you think about it. Warned them how? A giant billboard? A strongly worded email? Maybe a dinosaur news broadcast interrupting regular programming. Attention everyone, please avoid standing directly beneath the incoming extinction event. Unfortunately, even the best customer service department struggles with problems traveling 12 miles per second. 32. Someone genuinely believed they could improve their eyesight by increasing the screen brightness because more light means clearer vision. That's not how eyes work. If it were, every movie theater would be the worst place on earth to recognize your friends.
Their phone eventually became bright enough to signal aircraft, but somehow still couldn't fix blurry vision. At that point, even the battery seemed exhausted from participating in the experiment. 33. A user asked if deleting their alarm app before going to sleep would prevent morning from happening. They admitted it sounded strange, but insisted they'd never actually seen a morning arrive without an alarm involved. That's the kind of logic that accidentally invents a new branch of philosophy. Roosters managed mornings for thousands of years before smartphones existed. The sun, completely unaware of this bold strategy, rose exactly on time while the user overslept and accidentally proved their own theory wrong. 34. One person asked whether mirrors get tired of reflecting people all day. They argued that everything else eventually wears out, so mirrors must secretly need breaks too.
It quickly escalated into questions about whether mirrors preferred certain faces or got bored staring at bathrooms forever. Somewhere, a mirror silently reflected the entire conversation without complaint, demonstrating more patience in a few seconds than most humans manage in a lifetime. 35. A user asked if plants grow faster when you compliment them in a more professional tone. They weren't talking about encouragement. They specifically wanted to know whether saying, "Excellent chlorophyll production today," worked better than, "Good job, little buddy." Somewhere along the way, gardening turned into a corporate performance review. Imagine a sunflower expecting quarterly evaluations and asking for more sunlight instead of a raise. The tomato plant continued growing at its own pace, completely unimpressed by management's motivational speeches. 36. Someone wanted to know if wearing 2 watches would make them twice as punctual. It sounded perfectly reasonable to them. One watch could always back up the other. By that logic, wearing 4 pairs of glasses should give you superhero vision. The funniest part is they admitted they were late constantly, but blamed unreliable clocks. At some point, every watch in existence deserved an apology for carrying the reputation of someone who ignored all of them equally. 37. One person asked if they could cool down their laptop by putting tiny bags of frozen peas on the keyboard while gaming. They described it as external liquid cooling without the liquid. It's difficult to improve on that sentence. Somewhere, engineers spent years designing advanced cooling systems, while someone else raided the freezer. The laptop survived. The peas didn't. Dinner ended up tasting suspiciously like thermal paste and poor decision-making. 38. A user wondered whether birds recognize the same humans every day or if they think every person is a completely new character. Somehow, the discussion evolved into whether pigeons have favorite commuters and secretly judge people's fashion choices. Imagine showing up at the train station only to be reviewed daily by 3 crows and an unusually opinionated seagull. The birds offered no comment. They've mastered the ancient art of letting humans embarrass themselves without interruption. 39. Someone asked if sleeping with their mouth open allowed them to absorb extra oxygen and wake up more energetic. They imagined nighttime as one long battery recharge. If that were true, campers would wake up with the energy of superheroes, while snorers would qualify as renewable power sources. Instead, they mostly woke up with a dry mouth and the unsettling realization that biology continues ignoring internet theories with remarkable consistency. 40. One user wanted to know if they could trick their fitness tracker into counting more steps by clapping really fast. They argued that their arms were moving just as much as their legs would have been. Somewhere, the smartwatch briefly considered retiring. Imagine marathon runners replacing months of training with enthusiastic applause from the couch. The tracker stubbornly refused to award imaginary miles, proving technology occasionally has stronger self-respect than the people using it. 41. A person seriously asked whether putting their phone in the refrigerator would cool down the weather app. They noticed the phone became colder and assumed the forecast should update accordingly. That's a fascinating misunderstanding of both meteorology and kitchen appliances. If refrigerators controlled weather reports,
every grocery store would qualify as a climate research center. Outside, it remained 90 degrees. Inside the fridge, only the leftovers appreciated the extra company. 42. Someone asked if they could become fluent in Spanish by sleeping next to a Spanish dictionary every night.
They admitted it sounded unconventional, but wondered whether the brain could absorb words through proximity. That's an incredible vote of confidence in pillows. Universities would have gone bankrupt years ago if knowledge worked like Bluetooth. Students would simply hug textbooks before exams and wake up speaking 6 languages. The dictionary remained politely silent, refusing to participate in educational magic tricks. 43. One user wondered whether fish ever think humans are flying when they look up through the water. Suddenly, everyone reading the question stopped for a moment because, honestly, that's surprisingly interesting. Then they ruined it by asking whether ducks confuse fish even more because they switch between swimming and flying. Somewhere below the surface, a trout ignored the entire philosophical debate and focused on the far more important task of avoiding becoming somebody's lunch. 44. A person asked if laughing too hard burns enough calories to replace going to the gym forever. They had calculated that comedians must secretly be elite athletes. Imagine fitness centers replacing treadmills with sitcom marathons and stand-up specials. Personal trainers would simply hand you popcorn and tell you to enjoy the next 90 minutes. Sadly, your abs still expect actual work. But if laughter really counted that much, the internet would have accidentally become the healthiest place on Earth. 45. One user asked if changing their profile picture made facial recognition forget who they were. They figured the internet updated everyone's face the same way it updated contact photos. It's a wonderfully optimistic view of technology. By that logic, celebrities could disappear simply by uploading a beach selfie. Somewhere, facial recognition software kept doing complicated math while this person believed the secret to privacy was choosing a picture with better lighting and a flattering angle. 46. Someone wanted to know if dogs understand that humans throw tennis balls on purpose or if they think we're unbelievably bad at holding on to things. Suddenly, the question became impossible to ignore. Imagine spending your entire life believing your best friend suffers from chronic butterfingers. Every throw isn't a game. It's another emergency retrieval mission. Somewhere, a golden retriever proudly sprinted after yet another ball, convinced humanity desperately needed professional assistance. 47. A user asked if putting their phone on silent also prevented incoming bad news. They admitted it sounded silly, but pointed out they'd never received upsetting notifications they couldn't hear immediately. That's less of a phone setting and more of an emotional support strategy.
Imagine hospitals switching to silent mode during flu season. Reality, unfortunately, doesn't wait politely until your ringtone comes back on. It simply leaves missed calls with perfect confidence. 48. One person seriously wondered if penguins get cold. They knew penguins lived in Antarctica, but argued that people wear coats in winter even though they live on Earth all year. Fair point, for about 3 seconds. Then they suggested penguins might secretly hate the cold and simply hadn't discovered Florida yet. Somewhere, an emperor penguin stood comfortably on the ice, while humans debated whether it needed a tiny jacket and a vacation brochure. 49. Someone asked if vacuum cleaners become heavier after collecting dust because they were carrying more dirt. Technically, yes, but they immediately followed up by asking whether that extra weight explained why vacuuming feels exhausting. Apparently, years of household frustration had finally found a scientific villain, not sore muscles.
Not pushing furniture. Dust. Somewhere, every vacuum cleaner quietly accepted blame for problems it never asked to be part of. 50. A user wanted to know whether astronauts get charged roaming fees when they use satellites in space. They imagined a giant monthly phone bill arriving at NASA headquarters. Congratulations on reaching orbit. That'll be $48 million in international data charges. Customer service would have a difficult time explaining that the nearest cell tower was approximately 200 miles below the customer. Even telecom companies probably looked at that idea and thought, "Easy there." 51. One person asked if putting their glasses on upside down would let them see Australia correctly. They reasoned that Australia is upside down compared to everyone else, so perhaps the glasses should match. It's an astonishing combination of geography and confidence. If vision worked that way, globes would come with prescription lenses. Somewhere in Sydney, absolutely nothing changed. Australia continued existing exactly where it always had, completely ignoring experimental eyewear. 52. Someone wondered if deleting their calculator app erased the math forever. They admitted numbers still existed, but questioned whether their phone remembered arithmetic without the app installed. That's giving software a remarkable amount of responsibility. Imagine uninstalling the weather app and expecting rain to become illegal. Mathematics survived the experiment with surprising resilience, proving once again that reality has excellent backup systems. 53. A user asked whether typing in all capital letters made the internet louder. They understood people joked about shouting online, but wanted to know if servers actually processed uppercase text with more energy. Somewhere inside a massive data center, millions of computers continued working in complete silence, while this person imagined tiny processors covering their ears. The servers weren't offended. They'd been handling humanity's strange ideas for decades and had developed impressive emotional immunity. 54. One person asked if mirrors show your reflection in real time or if there's a tiny delay nobody has noticed yet. They stared into the bathroom mirror for nearly 10 minutes, trying to catch it lagging behind. Blink? Nothing. Wave? Still nothing. They became convinced the delay was simply too fast to detect. Imagine dedicating an entire evening to outsmarting your own reflection, only to discover the mirror had been winning the competition the whole time. 55. A user asked if they could improve their phone's camera quality by cleaning their own glasses first. They argued that since they looked through the glasses to take the picture, the camera should also benefit. It's a surprisingly creative misunderstanding of optics. Imagine professional photographers polishing sunglasses before every wedding shoot. The phone kept taking the exact same photos, while the glasses enjoyed the cleanest day of their entire existence. 56. Someone wanted to know if fish recognize weekends. Their reasoning was that fewer people go boating on Mondays, so fish must eventually notice the pattern. They even wondered if bass wake up every Saturday thinking, "Here come the noisy humans again." It's oddly comforting to imagine trout complaining about weekend traffic the same way we complain about crowded grocery stores. The fish, meanwhile, remained committed to their lifelong hobby of avoiding hooks, regardless of the calendar. 57. One person asked whether clouds ever collide hard enough to make dents. They admitted they'd never seen damaged clouds, but figured it had to happen occasionally. Imagine meteorologists issuing reports about a partly dented sky with scattered repairs expected by noon. Somewhere above us, billions of gallons of water floated peacefully, while humanity once again confused cartoons with atmospheric science. The clouds continued their day without needing insurance paperwork. 58. A user wondered if putting their phone on airplane mode while driving would confuse GPS into thinking they were flying. They imagined the phone proudly announcing, "Congratulations, you're now cruising at 35,000 feet."
Navigation apps have witnessed many questionable decisions, but this was a bold new category. The GPS calmly continued showing highways instead of flight paths, refusing to let one menu setting rewrite the laws of transportation. 59. Someone seriously asked if twins share the same birthday wish. They reasoned that since both blow out candles on the same day, maybe the wishes somehow get mixed together. What happens if one wishes for a puppy and the other wishes for a kitten? Does the universe schedule a meeting to negotiate?
Somewhere, birthday cakes quietly accepted that they had become part of an international debate about cosmic customer service. 60. One user wanted to know whether deleting old emails reduced the weight of their laptop. They knew digital files weren't physical, but insisted millions of messages had to weigh something. That's an incredible commitment to invisible clutter. If storage worked that way, deleting vacation photos would make backpacks lighter too. The laptop stubbornly remained exactly the same weight, despite losing enough spam messages to fill several imaginary warehouses. 61. A person asked if squirrels remember where every single nut is, or if they spend half the winter pretending they meant to hide them somewhere else. Honestly, this one almost sounds fair. We've all forgotten where we left our keys. Imagine forgetting thousands of tiny snacks across an entire forest. Somewhere, a squirrel confidently dug in the wrong spot, looked around awkwardly, and acted like that had definitely been the plan all along. 62. Someone wondered if changing the language on their phone made autocorrect think in a different accent. They imagined English autocorrect sipping tea after switching to British settings, or suddenly craving tacos after choosing Spanish. The keyboard quietly continued fixing typos, while this person invented an entire emotional life for predictive text. Technology has become incredibly advanced, but it still hasn't developed opinions about regional pronunciation. 63. One user asked whether ghosts walk through automatic doors or have to wait for someone else to trigger the sensor first. The question quickly became far more detailed than anyone expected. Do motion detectors recognize spirits? Can haunted supermarkets save electricity after closing? Somewhere, an automatic door opened for an actual customer, while refusing to participate in one of the internet's strangest engineering discussions. 64. A person wanted to know if pigeons ever recognize statues as fake people, or spend years wondering why one particular human never moves. Suddenly, every city square became much funnier. Imagine generations of pigeons holding family meetings about the incredibly patient bronze man who stands outside the library every single day. Historians study monuments. Pigeons probably just wonder why that weird guy never throws breadcrumbs. 65. Someone asked if turning the volume all the way down before dropping their phone would make it hit the ground more quietly. They weren't joking. They figured the speaker controlled how loud the impact sounded. That's giving smartphones remarkable authority over gravity. If it worked, construction workers would simply mute bricks before accidents. The phone disagreed with the theory in the loudest way possible, face first onto the kitchen floor. 66. A user seriously wondered if the internet goes to sleep at night because fewer people are online. They pictured giant servers yawning, stretching, and enjoying a peaceful nap until morning traffic arrived. Somewhere inside a massive data center, thousands of machines hummed 24 hours a day without ever requesting coffee breaks. The internet never sleeps. It simply stays awake, waiting for the next question that makes everyone question humanity instead. 67. Finally, someone asked ChatGPT, "What's the dumbest question you've ever been asked?" Think about the impossible position that creates. Every answer instantly becomes outdated because tomorrow, someone will ask whether bananas dream. if elevators get tired, or whether unplugging the toaster resets breakfast. That's the true genius of humanity. We don't just invent technology, we constantly invent brand new ways to confuse it. And honestly, that's probably why AI keeps showing up for work every day. If humanity keeps asking questions like these, AI deserves weekends too. Which one made you laugh the hardest? Drop your favorite in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back for the next collection of beautifully unexplainable human logic.